Have you ever noticed that thoughts seem to arise on their own, uninvited? One moment, you're sipping your morning tea, and suddenly, a memory, a worry, a plan for the future appears in your mind. Where did it come from? And if these thoughts come and go like clouds across the sky, who is it that notices them? Pause for a moment. When a thought arises, are you the thought itself? Or are you the one aware of it? If you're not your thoughts, then who, or what, is observing them? This simple question has fascinated sages and meditators for thousands of years. In today's reflection, we will journey deep into this mystery, exploring Buddhist insights into the nature of the mind, the illusion of self, and the quiet presence within each of us that sees all, yet remains untouched. So, if you've ever felt trapped in the endless stream of thinking, or wondered what lies beyond the noise of the mind, stay with me. You might just discover a freedom far greater than anything thought could ever offer. Take a moment and notice this very instant. Right now, you are listening. A part of you is aware of these words. But even before these words arise in your mind, there is already something present. A silent, steady knowing. Now, notice what happens when a thought appears. Perhaps it's about your to-do list. Maybe a stray worry or an old memory surfaces. Without effort, these thoughts seem to emerge on their own. No one invited them, and yet there they are, flowing in, one after another, sometimes gentle, sometimes loud. But if you pay close attention, you will see that they do not come from some fixed place. They arise, they stay for a while, then fade away. So we might ask, what is the nature of thought? Is it something solid? Something you can hold on to? The Buddha taught that all conditioned phenomena are impermanent. Thoughts, too, are no exception. They are fleeting, insubstantial, like ripples on a pond. When you sit quietly and watch the mind, it becomes clear. Thoughts appear and vanish. Sometimes they are related to one another, creating a story. At other times, they seem random and disconnected. But in truth, they have no enduring essence. Still, there is something even more curious. If thoughts are arising, there must be something that is aware of their arising. This awareness is not itself a thought. It is the space in which thoughts appear. Just as the sky holds the clouds, yet is not the clouds. The awareness within you holds all mental activity, yet remains untouched by it. Many of us go through life without noticing this. We take our thoughts to be the sum total of who we are. I am anxious. I am happy. I am angry. We identify so closely with the content of the mind that we forget this deeper truth, that we are not the thoughts themselves. There is a knowing presence behind them. This presence is always here, always watching. Let's pause and consider an example. Imagine you are sitting by a river. Leaves float by on the surface of the water. Each leaf is like a thought. Some may catch your attention. Some you may want to pick up and examine. Others drift away unnoticed. Now imagine that instead of reaching for every leaf, you simply sit back and watch the river flow. The river flows on its own. You do not need to control it. The same is true of your mind. Thoughts come and go. You do not need to chase after each one. You can simply rest as the observer. The Buddha often pointed to this simple truth in his teachings. He encouraged his followers to cultivate mindfulness, the clear, non-judgmental awareness of what is happening, here and now. Through mindfulness, we begin to see that thoughts are not permanent. They are not me or mine. They are just mental events, arising due to causes and conditions, then passing away. But why is this important? Because when we understand the true nature of thought, we begin to loosen the grip that thinking has over us. We no longer need to believe every thought. We no longer get lost in endless mental chatter. Instead, we can return again and again to the spacious awareness that holds everything. For many people, the mind feels like a constant whirlwind. There is always something going on. Planning, remembering, worrying, analyzing. It can feel exhausting. But the truth is, this constant activity is not the essence of your being. Beneath the surface noise, there is a deep stillness, a quiet presence. This is what we touch in meditation. Not to escape thought, but to see it clearly. To know that it is just a passing phenomenon. Sometimes people think that meditation means stopping all thought. But this is not necessary. The goal is not to create a blank mind, but rather to change our relationship to thinking. To no longer be caught in it. To rest in the knowing, rather than the known. Consider this. If you are watching a movie, you may get swept up in the story. You laugh, you cry, you feel fear or joy. But at some level, you know it is just a movie. The screen remains unchanged. In the same way, your awareness remains steady, even as thoughts and emotions play out within it. Through regular practice, this insight deepens. You begin to see thoughts as they truly are, empty of lasting substance. Not worthy of clinging to. This brings great freedom. No longer are you bound by every passing mood or idea. Instead, you can meet life with greater clarity and ease. It's important to remember that this is not about rejecting thought. Thoughts can be useful. They help us navigate the world. But they are not the whole of who we are. When we rest in awareness, thoughts take their proper place, tools to be used when needed, not masters to control us. And so, the first step is to notice. Begin to observe the mind. Without judgment, see how thoughts arise and fade. Notice the space between them. Notice the awareness that remains constant, like the sky behind the clouds. This is the beginning of insight into the true nature of thought, and into the deeper reality of who you are. When this understanding deepens, even difficult thoughts lose their power to disturb you. You may still experience sadness, anger, or fear, but you see them for what they are, temporary waves on the ocean of the mind. They come, they go, and you remain, the silent witness to it all. This is the essence of the Buddha's teaching on the nature of mind. Not to fight thought, not to cling to it, but to know it, to rest in the awareness that is always present, always free, and through this knowing, to find a peace that no thought can disturb. We will explore this even further in the next part of our reflection. For now, let this understanding settle in your heart. The mind is vast. Thoughts are small ripples upon it. And you, the true you, are not the ripples, but the vastness itself. As you begin to observe the arising and passing of thoughts, a natural curiosity may arise within you. If these thoughts come and go, and if they are not the solid core of who you are, then what is it that notices them? What is this knowing presence that quietly witnesses the activity of the mind without being swept away by it? This question points us toward one of the most profound insights in Buddhist practice, the recognition of the silent witness within. Across many traditions and schools of meditation, there is this understanding that beneath all thoughts, all sensations, all emotions, there is a deeper awareness. This awareness is not created by thought, nor is it something that comes and goes. It is ever present, spacious, and still. Imagine for a moment that you are sitting quietly, watching the sky. Clouds may drift across the expanse above you, some dark and heavy, others light and wispy. The sky itself does not cling to any cloud. It does not resist their coming or going. It simply remains, vast and untouched. In the same way, the awareness within you does not cling to thoughts or emotions. It simply knows them. But here is the subtle beauty of it. This awareness is so familiar, so ever-present, that we often overlook it. We become so fascinated by the contents of the mind, the stories, the images, the worries, that we forget to notice the clear knowing that is always here. Yet, without this knowing, you would not be able to recognize a single thought. When a thought arises, there is an immediate recognition of it. This recognition happens effortlessly. You do not need to think about noticing the thought. It simply occurs. That effortless recognition is awareness. It is not a thought itself. It is what allows you to be conscious of thought. Many meditation teachers describe this as the difference between the movie screen and the movie. The movie may change from scene to scene, full of color, sound, and drama, but the screen remains constant. It allows the movie to appear, yet it is not affected by what is projected onto it. In the same way, awareness allows thoughts to appear, but it is not disturbed by them. When you begin to settle into this awareness, a deep sense of peace can arise, because you realize that you are not the passing thoughts, nor the shifting emotions. You are that which knows them, and this knowing is vast and unshakable. Even when the mind is busy, even when strong emotions surge, this awareness remains. It is like the depths of the ocean, undisturbed by the waves on the surface. It is helpful to reflect on how often we get caught in identification with thought. For example, a thought of failure arises, and we immediately believe it. I am a failure. An angry thought arises, and we become that anger. I am angry. But when we look more closely, we can see that thoughts are merely appearances in the mind. They are not who we truly are. And when we rest in the silent witness, we no longer need to be defined by every passing thought. The Buddha's teachings encourage us to cultivate this kind of clear seeing through mindfulness. Mindfulness is not simply about paying attention. It is about observing with wisdom, recognizing the impermanent and selfless nature of all phenomena, including thoughts. Through sustained practice, mindfulness allows us to experience the gap between awareness and thought. We begin to see that thoughts arise within awareness, but they do not define awareness. Let's consider a simple exercise. Sit quietly and close your eyes. Allow the mind to be as it is. Don't try to stop thoughts or force them to be any particular way. Simply watch. Notice how thoughts arise, perhaps about what you will eat later, or something that happened yesterday. And as each thought comes, ask yourself, who is noticing this thought? Where is the center of knowing? You may begin to sense that there is no fixed thinker behind the thought, only the arising of the thought itself. Known within a spacious awareness, this realization can be very freeing. For much of our lives, we have been taught to believe in a fixed self, an unchanging me behind every experience. But through meditation, it becomes clear that this me is just another thought. Another story arising in awareness. The silent witness is not personal. It is not limited by the content of experience. It is open, boundless. Some may wonder, if awareness is always present, why is it so hard to notice? The reason is simple. We have spent years training our attention to follow the contents of the mind. We are drawn again and again into stories, judgments, fantasies. The pull of thought is strong, but with gentle and consistent practice, we can begin to turn attention back to its source. Each time we recognize awareness itself, we strengthen our connection to this deeper ground. In the early stages, this may feel subtle. You may catch only glimpses of the silent witness. But over time, these glimpses grow clearer and more stable. You begin to see that awareness is not something you need to create. It is already here, beneath all experience. It is like discovering that the ground has always been beneath your feet, even when you were not thinking about it. One of the beautiful qualities of this awareness is its equanimity. Because it is not bound by thought or emotion, it can remain at peace even in the midst of difficulty. When we rest in awareness, we are less likely to be overwhelmed by the highs and lows of life. There is a spaciousness, a resilience, that naturally arises. It is also important to understand that awareness is not something separate from you. It is not an object to be grasped. It is what you are, in your deepest essence. Often, people search for peace outside themselves, in possessions, achievements, relationships. But the truest peace comes from recognizing the awareness that is always present, always free. In Buddhist teachings, this is sometimes called the natural mind. the mind that is not caught in grasping or aversion, not limited by identity. When we touch this natural mind, we experience a profound ease. We realize that we do not need to fix or change the flow of thoughts. We simply rest as the awareness in which they arise. This understanding also brings great compassion. When we see that thoughts and emotions are not the true self, we become less judgmental of ourselves and others. We recognize that everyone is caught in the play of the mind. Everyone is experiencing the arising and passing of thoughts. And so, we meet ourselves and others with greater kindness and patience. As your practice deepens, you may find that the distinction between awareness and thought becomes clearer in daily life. You notice when the mind is getting caught in a story. You remember to return to the witness. In this way, mindfulness is not confined to the meditation cushion. It becomes a living presence, supporting you through all moments. The silent witness is not an achievement or a state to attain. It is your natural condition. The more you relax and let go of striving, the more clearly it reveals itself. This is the paradox. By not seeking, you find. By not grasping, you rest in the very awareness that has been here all along. So as you continue on this path, trust in the simple power of noticing. When a thought arises, see it. When an emotion stirs, feel it. And underneath it all, recognize the spacious awareness that holds every experience. This is the heart of the practice, to rest as the silent witness, open and free. In the next part of our journey, we will explore how identification with thought creates suffering, and how loosening this identification opens the door to a deeper freedom. But for now, simply rest in the knowing. Let the mind be as it is. And remember, you are not the passing clouds. You are the vast sky. As we continue to explore this profound inquiry, a natural question arises. Why do we so often become entangled in thoughts? Why do these fleeting mental events have such power over our emotions, our actions, and even our sense of identity? The answer lies in the deeply ingrained habit of identification. From a very young age, we are conditioned to believe that we are the content of our minds. We are taught to define ourselves through our thoughts, our opinions, our memories, our preferences. When a thought appears, we instinctively think, "This is me, this is mine." If an anxious thought arises, we say, "I am anxious." If a critical thought surfaces, we say, "I am bad or unworthy." In this way, the boundary between thought and self becomes blurred, and we become bound by whatever the mind produces. The Buddha saw this clearly and spoke of the process of clinging, or attachment. It is not the thoughts themselves that cause suffering, but our attachment to them, our tendency to believe them without question. A thought is just a thought, a momentary appearance in awareness. But when we grasp at it, identify with it, build a story around it, suffering arises. Consider the example of a passing stranger. You might see someone walk by on the street. For a moment, their image registers in your awareness. And then it fades. You do not cling to it. You do not think, "That person is me." But when a thought arises in the mind, we often do the opposite. We grab hold of it, analyze it, spin it into a narrative about who we are or how the world is. This is how identification with thought gives rise to suffering. Much of our mental activity revolves around this identification. We replay old hurts, rehearse future fears, judge ourselves and others. Each time we do so, we reinforce the illusion of a fixed self, a self defined by the content of the mind. But in truth, the self constructed in this way is unstable. It shifts with each passing thought. One moment, we feel confident. The next, we feel insecure. One moment, we feel peaceful. The next, restless. Because the self we are clinging to is built on impermanent mental events, our sense of who we are remains fragile and easily disturbed. This is why the Buddha taught that freedom lies in seeing through this illusion. By recognizing that thoughts are not who we are, we loosen the grip of identification. We begin to experience a greater spaciousness and ease. We see that we do not need to be defined by every passing thought or emotion. Let's take a simple example. Imagine you are sitting quietly, and a thought arises. I am not good enough. In the usual way of relating to thought, you might believe this idea, feel discouraged, and perhaps act from that discouragement. But what if, instead, you simply noticed the thought as it arose? You recognized it as a mental event, arising and passing in awareness. You did not believe it, did not cling to it. In that moment, you are free. The thought loses its power to define you. This is the heart of the practice. Not to stop thoughts, for the arising of thoughts is natural, but to change our relationship to them. To rest in the knowing awareness that sees thoughts clearly, without being caught in their content. Through this practice, we begin to see that the mind is like a mirror. It reflects whatever appears, thoughts, emotions, sensations, but it is not defined by what it reflects. Just as a mirror is not changed by the images that pass across its surface. Awareness is not changed by the mental events it knows. When we rest in this understanding, we find a deep sense of freedom. It is important to understand that this shift does not happen overnight. For most of us, the habit of identification is strong, built up over many years. It takes patience and gentle persistence to unwind it. Each time you notice that you have become entangled in thought, and gently return to the witness, you are training the mind in a new way of seeing. One of the great gifts of meditation is that it provides a safe space to practice this seeing. When you sit quietly, without distraction, you can observe the arising and passing of thought with greater clarity. You can begin to notice patterns. Which thoughts tend to hook you? Which stories the mind returns to again and again? And through this noticing, a natural disidentification begins to occur. You may also notice that certain thoughts have a strong emotional charge. These are the thoughts most likely to pull you into identification. A thought about a past hurt, a fear about the future, a judgment about yourself or someone else. When such thoughts arise, it can be helpful to bring a quality of kind curiosity to them. To see them clearly, but without judgment. To remember, this is just a thought, arising in awareness. It does not define me. In time, this practice begins to reshape our inner life. We become less reactive, more grounded. We are no longer pushed and pulled by every wave of thought. Instead, we rest more and more in the stillness of awareness. And from this place of clarity, we can engage with the world with greater wisdom and compassion. It is also worth noting that the process of disidentifying from thought does not mean becoming detached or indifferent. On the contrary, it allows us to meet life more fully, with an open heart. When we are not bound by limiting self-concepts, we can respond to situations with greater authenticity. We are not acting from a fixed identity, but from a place of present moment awareness. As this understanding deepens, a profound shift in perspective occurs. We begin to see that the sense of a solid, separate self is itself a construct, a story created by the mind. In moments of deep stillness, this story may fall away altogether, leaving only the open, boundless awareness in which all experience arises. This is not some mystical or far-off attainment. It is a natural insight that arises through patient observation and inquiry. And it brings with it a great sense of relief. We no longer need to defend a fragile ego, to protect a story of self. We can simply be open, present, free. Throughout the Buddha's teachings, there is a recurring invitation to see clearly the impermanent, selfless nature of all phenomena, including thought and the sense of self. This seeing is not an intellectual understanding, but a direct experience, cultivated through mindfulness and meditation. In daily life, we can support this understanding by bringing mindful awareness to moments of identification. When you notice the mind saying, "I am this" or "I am that," pause and inquire, is this thought truly who I am? Or is it simply a passing appearance in awareness? In this way, everyday experiences become opportunities for insight. Over time, this practice transforms our relationship not only with thought, but with life itself. We begin to meet each moment with greater openness and ease. We become less entangled in drama, less caught in the endless play of the mind. And in this spaciousness, a natural compassion arises, for ourselves, for others, for the world, because when we see that the self is not a fixed entity, we also see that others are not fixed in their identities. We understand that everyone is caught, to some degree, in the web of thought and identification. This understanding softens the heart, fosters patience and kindness. And so, the practice of observing thought is not merely an individual pursuit. It is a path that opens us to greater connection, greater compassion. It allows us to move through the world with the lightness of being, grounded in the deep knowing that we are not the passing waves of thought, but the vast awareness in which they arise. As we continue our journey, we will explore how this understanding can deepen through meditation, and how it can be integrated into the flow of daily life. But for now, let us rest in this simple truth. You are not your thoughts. You are the silent witness, the open space of awareness. And in this knowing, there is great freedom. As we continue along this path of inquiry, a deeper question begins to emerge. If I am not my thoughts, if I am the awareness that observes them, then what is this awareness? What is this knowing presence in which all experience arises? The Buddha pointed us again and again to this very mystery. He encouraged his followers not to become caught in speculative views, but to turn attention inward and observe directly. Through careful observation, through mindfulness and meditation, one can begin to taste the nature of this awareness for oneself. One of the first things we notice when we turn inward is that awareness is always present. Thoughts come and go, sensations arise and pass, emotions appear and fade, but throughout all of this, there is a continuous knowing. Whether you are thinking or resting in silence, whether the mind is agitated or calm, awareness remains. It is like the open sky, untroubled by the clouds that pass through it. No matter how stormy the clouds may be, the sky itself is vast, open, and untouched. This is a subtle but profound shift in perception. We are so used to identifying with the contents of experience that we often overlook the awareness in which all this content arises. But as the practice deepens, the background of awareness begins to come into the foreground. You may notice this in meditation. Perhaps you sit quietly, following the breath. Thoughts arise, feelings move through the body. But gradually, you sense the space in which all of this is happening. You begin to rest more in the knowing itself, rather than being caught in what is known. This knowing awareness is not something you create. It is not an object you can grasp. It is already present, always here. You do not have to do anything to produce it. It is the very nature of mind. In the teachings of Buddhism, this is sometimes called the unborn, the unconditioned. It is not born and does not die. It is not bound by the coming and going of phenomena. When we begin to recognize this, a natural ease arises. We see that we do not need to control our experience. We do not need to manage the flow of thoughts or feelings. We can simply rest in the knowing, allowing all things to be as they are. Thoughts may arise and pass, but they do not disturb the awareness. Emotions may surge and fade, but they do not shake the ground of being. In this way, meditation becomes an act of letting go, not striving to achieve some special state, but relaxing into the natural awareness that is always present. Over time, this relaxation deepens. The tendency to identify with thoughts loosens. The habit of clinging softens. We begin to live more and more from the spaciousness of awareness. It is important to recognize that this is not about suppressing thought or emotion. It is about seeing their true nature. Thoughts are not obstacles. Emotions are not enemies. They are simply appearances in awareness. Like waves on the surface of the ocean. They come and go, but the depth of the ocean remains undisturbed. When we rest in this depth, we find a great peace. This peace is not dependent on external conditions. It is not something that can be gained or lost. It is the very nature of awareness itself. And as this understanding matures, it transforms how we relate to life. We become less reactive, more present. We meet each moment with greater clarity and compassion. In daily life, there are many opportunities to recognize this awareness. You might be walking, feeling the contact of your feet with the earth. A thought arises, perhaps about something you need to do. In that moment, you can notice the thought as a passing event, and also sense the awareness that is knowing it. In this simple recognition, the identification with thought loosens. Or you might be in a conversation, and a strong emotion arises. Rather than being swept away by it, you can pause, breathe, and feel the emotion as it moves through the body. Again, there is awareness of the emotion, but you are not the emotion. You are the space in which it is known. This allows you to respond with greater wisdom and kindness. Through this practice, a deep trust in awareness begins to grow. You realize that awareness can hold all things, joy and sorrow, pleasure and pain, clarity and confusion. There is nothing that needs to be pushed away, nothing that needs to be fixed. Everything can be met with the open, loving space of awareness. This trust brings a profound sense of freedom. You no longer fear the arising of difficult thoughts or feelings. You know that whatever arises, it will pass, and through it all, the awareness remains spacious and untroubled. You come to see that your true nature is not limited to any particular thought or feeling. It is the vast, open awareness in which all things appear and disappear. This realization does not make us indifferent or detached. On the contrary, it allows us to engage with life more fully. When we are not caught in the small self, we can meet others with greater empathy. We can respond to suffering with compassion. We can celebrate joy without clinging. Life becomes a dance, flowing naturally from moment to moment. In this way, the simple practice of observing thought, of resting in awareness, becomes a gateway to deep transformation. It is not about escaping the world, but about seeing it clearly. It is not about denying thought or feeling, but about knowing their true nature. And in this knowing, there is great peace. As we deepen in this practice, we may also encounter moments of profound stillness. In these moments, the usual activity of mind quiets. Thought subsides. There is a simple presence, a silent knowing. The boundaries between self and other, between inside and outside, begin to dissolve. There is just this, pure being, pure awareness. Such moments are glimpses of the unconditioned, the timeless. They are not something we can grasp or hold on to. They arise naturally when the mind is at ease. And even when they pass, they leave a trace, a knowing that changes us. We begin to see that what we truly are is not limited to the body or mind. We are this vast, open awareness. This is the heart of the Buddha's teaching, not a doctrine to believe, but an invitation to see for oneself, to turn inward, to inquire, to rest in the knowing that is always present. And in this seeing, the roots of suffering begin to dissolve. The sense of a separate, struggling self begins to fade. What remains is a deep peace, a boundless compassion, a joyful participation in the dance of life. As we continue to explore this path, it is helpful to remember that this is a journey of gentle persistence. The habits of identification are strong. The pull of thought is subtle. But each moment of mindfulness, each moment of resting in awareness, plants a seed. Over time, these seeds bear fruit. The mind becomes clearer. The heart becomes more open. Life is lived with greater ease and joy. And so, we walk this path with patience, With kindness toward ourselves, we learn to meet each moment as it is. Without resistance, without grasping, we learn to trust the natural awareness that is our true home. And in this trust, we find the freedom and peace that the Buddha pointed to, a freedom that is not found in the changing world, but in the timeless presence of awareness itself. As the journey into understanding the nature of thoughts and awareness deepens, a subtle yet profound shift begins to take place in how one experiences the world. It is as if a veil has been gradually lifting, revealing something that was always present but unnoticed. When one sees that thoughts arise and pass in awareness, and that awareness itself is not touched by the content of thought, there arises a quiet freedom. This freedom is not dramatic or loud. It is a gentle release, a softening of the grip of identification with the stream of mental activity. This process invites a deeper inquiry. If thoughts are observed, and there is a knowing of these thoughts, what is the relationship between awareness and the mind? Often, people assume that the mind and awareness are one and the same. But through the practice of meditation and mindfulness, a distinction becomes clear. The mind, in the way it is commonly experienced, is the collection of thoughts, images, memories, feelings, and sensations that arise and pass. It is the domain of conditioned experience, shaped by past impressions, habits, and the constant interplay of perception and interpretation. Awareness, on the other hand, is the open, spacious presence in which all these mental activities occur. It is not conditioned by thought, nor is it an object that can be known in the usual way. It is more like a background that allows the foreground of experience to appear. To use a metaphor, the mind is like the screen on which a movie is projected, full of scenes and stories, while awareness is like the light that makes the projection possible. The light itself remains unchanged, regardless of what images dance across the screen. Recognizing this distinction is both liberating and humbling. It shows us that we are not limited to the ever-changing content of mind. The worries, anxieties, hopes, and plans that arise are not who we are. They are transient, like weather patterns in the sky. Even deeply ingrained patterns of thought and emotion, though they may feel heavy or persistent, are still just appearances in awareness. They do not define the essence of being. This realization brings a great relief. Much of human suffering comes from the habit of identification with thought and emotion. When a painful thought arises, such as, "I am a failure," or "no one loves me," it can feel as though this thought defines the entire reality of who one is. The thought becomes a lens through which the world is seen, reinforcing a limited sense of self. But when one learns to see thoughts as objects in awareness, like clouds drifting through the sky, there is space. The thought is no longer fused with identity. It is seen for what it is, a momentary event in the mind. This does not mean that difficult thoughts or emotions will never arise again. The nature of the human mind is to generate an endless stream of mental activity, shaped by countless causes and conditions. But what changes is the relationship to this activity. Rather than being swept away by every wave of thought or emotion, one learns to rest in the ocean of awareness, allowing the waves to rise and fall naturally. This practice is not about detachment in the sense of cold indifference. It is a warm, compassionate spaciousness. By seeing the nature of thoughts, one develops greater kindness toward oneself and others. The harsh inner critic, the voice of self-judgment, begins to lose its power. One can meet the arising of negative thoughts with understanding, knowing that they are not the ultimate truth of who one is. In everyday life, this shift manifests as greater equanimity. Challenges and difficulties still arise, but they are no longer overwhelming. There is a sense of groundedness, of being rooted in something deeper than the changing conditions of the mind and world. Even in moments of stress or conflict, one can remember the simple truth: thoughts arise, but they do not define the essence of being. They are known by awareness, which remains untouched. To cultivate this understanding, regular practice is essential. Meditation offers a powerful means to deepen one's connection with awareness. In meditation, one creates a space to observe the mind without distraction. One might begin by focusing on the breath, gently noticing the flow of inhalation and exhalation. Inevitably, thoughts will arise. The practice is not to suppress them, but to notice them with curiosity and openness. When a thought arises, one can silently note, thinking, and return to the breath. Over time, this simple act of noticing reveals the transient nature of thought. No thought stays for long. It arises, lingers briefly, and passes away. In this way, the grip of identification loosens. Awareness becomes more vivid. One begins to rest more in the knowing itself, rather than being lost in what is known. As this practice deepens, one might begin to notice that even the sense of a separate observer is itself a construct of thought. There is a tendency to think, I am observing my thoughts, as if there is a little self behind the eyes watching the mind. But with careful observation, it becomes clear that this I is also a thought, an idea that arises in awareness. What remains is not a separate observer, but awareness itself, open, boundless, without center or circumference. This insight is at the heart of many Buddhist teachings. The self that we habitually take to be me is seen to be an illusion, a collection of changing thoughts, sensations, and memories. There is no fixed, independent self to be found. Yet, paradoxically, there is a profound sense of presence, of being, that is undeniable. This is the mystery of awareness. It is both no thing and the ground of all experience. Living from this understanding transforms the way we relate to life. There is less clinging, less fear. One sees the impermanent nature of all phenomena and rests more easily in the flow of change. Joy and sorrow, gain and loss, praise and blame, these are seen as natural movements in the play of life, not as threats to a solid self. This brings a lightness, a freedom to be fully present with whatever arises. In relationships, this freedom expresses as greater compassion, seeing that others are also caught in the web of thought and identification. One naturally feels empathy. The walls of separation soften. There is a recognition of shared humanity, of the universal nature of suffering and the longing for happiness. Acts of kindness and understanding flow more naturally, not from obligation, but from the spacious heart of awareness. This path of insight is not reserved for monks or advanced meditators. It is available to anyone willing to look deeply into the nature of mind. Every moment is an opportunity to turn toward awareness. Whether sitting in meditation, walking in nature, or engaging in conversation, one can remember, thoughts arise, but they are not who I am. There is an awareness that knows, spacious and free. Gradually, this remembrance becomes more stable. The habit of identification weakens. One lives more and more from the ground of awareness. This is the true liberation the Buddha pointed to, not escape from the world, but freedom within it, a freedom born of seeing clearly, of knowing the nature of thoughts and the boundless space in which they arise. And so, the journey continues, ever deepening. Each moment offers the invitation to rest in awareness, to see the fleeting nature of thought, to awaken to the peace and clarity that is always present. In this simple, direct seeing, one discovers the true refuge, not in ideas or beliefs, but in the living presence of awareness itself. As this exploration of awareness and thought deepens, a natural curiosity arises about how these insights can be lived, embodied in everyday life. It is one thing to experience moments of clarity on the meditation cushion or during a quiet walk in nature, and another to remain grounded in this understanding amid the challenges of daily responsibilities. Relationships, and emotional turbulence. The Buddha's teachings offer practical guidance for this integration, pointing to a life of mindful presence and compassionate engagement. One key to living this understanding is to cultivate mindfulness throughout the day. Mindfulness is not limited to formal meditation. It is the continuous practice of remembering to be aware of the present moment, to recognize the arising of thoughts, emotions, and sensations without becoming entangled in them. In this way, mindfulness serves as a bridge between insight and everyday life. With mindfulness, one learns to meet each situation with openness, curiosity, and kindness. For example, when engaged in conversation, it is common for thoughts and judgments to arise automatically. The mind may race ahead, preparing what to say next or evaluating what the other person is saying. In such moments, mindfulness invites one to pause, to notice these thoughts, and to return to the simple act of listening. This creates space for genuine connection, for a response that arises from presence rather than conditioned reactivity. Similarly, in moments of stress or frustration, mindfulness offers a refuge. Rather than being swept away by the narrative of the mind, this shouldn't be happening. Why is this so difficult? One can recognize these thoughts as they arise. There is a softening, a letting go of the inner struggle. One breathes, feels the body, and allows the experience to unfold. In this way, even challenging situations become opportunities to deepen in awareness and compassion. Another important aspect of integrating insight is recognizing the habitual patterns of the mind. Over years of conditioning, certain thought loops become ingrained, stories of self-doubt, blame, resentment, or fear. These patterns can be subtle and persistent, coloring perception and shaping behavior. Through mindfulness and reflection, one begins to see these patterns more clearly. Rather than identifying with them, one learns to observe them with gentle curiosity. For instance, if a pattern of self-criticism arises, "I'm not good enough. I always make mistakes," one can notice the thought as a mental event, not as an absolute truth. There is a shift from, "I am this thought," to, "Ah, this is a thought arising." This simple recognition weakens the power of the pattern. Over time, with consistent practice, such patterns lose their grip. The mind becomes more open, more spacious, less burdened by old stories. Compassion plays a vital role in this process. As one sees the transient nature of thoughts and the constructed nature of identity, there arises a natural compassion for oneself and others. The harsh inner critic softens. One begins to understand that everyone is subject to the same patterns of conditioning, to the same struggles with identification and suffering. This understanding fosters empathy, patience, and a heartfelt wish for the well-being of all beings. This compassion extends not only to individuals but to the broader field of human experience. One sees how collective conditioning shapes societies, how fear and ignorance give rise to division and conflict. Rather than reacting with anger or despair, one can respond with a compassionate awareness, contributing to the healing of the world in whatever ways are possible. Whether through acts of kindness, speaking with integrity, or simply embodying a presence of peace, each action becomes an expression of insight. A key support for this integration is maintaining a regular meditation practice. While mindfulness in daily life is essential, the stillness of formal meditation provides a profound ground for deepening awareness. In meditation, one creates a space of silence and simplicity, where the patterns of the mind can be seen with greater clarity. This is not an escape from life, but a training in seeing more deeply, in resting in the spaciousness of awareness. As meditation deepens, there may be moments when the sense of a separate observer dissolves. There is no longer a feeling of me observing thoughts, but simply awareness itself, vast and boundless. These glimpses reveal the true nature of mind, empty, luminous, and inseparable from all experience. With time, this understanding permeates daily life. One lives less from the perspective of a limited self and more from the openness of awareness. This does not mean that life becomes free of difficulties. The world continues to present challenges. The mind continues to generate thoughts and emotions. But the relationship to these experiences transforms. There is less clinging, less resistance. One learns to dance with the flow of life, responding with wisdom and compassion, even when mistakes are made, or when old patterns resurface. There is a greater capacity to meet these moments with understanding and care. Gratitude also arises naturally from this understanding. When one sees the fleeting nature of thought and the preciousness of awareness, each moment is appreciated more fully. The simple joys of life, a breath of fresh air, a smile, the warmth of sunlight, are no longer overlooked. There is a sense of wonder at the mystery of existence, a deep appreciation for the opportunity to awaken. To support this way of living, it is helpful to engage with spiritual community. The path of insight can be challenging at times, and having the support of others who share the intention to awaken is invaluable. Whether through meditation groups, retreats, or conversations with fellow practitioners, community provides encouragement, perspective, and a sense of connection. It reminds us that we are not alone in this journey. Ultimately, the practice of observing thoughts and resting in awareness is a lifelong path. There is no final destination, no point at which one can say, "Now I am fully awakened." The process is ever unfolding, ever deepening. Each moment offers the opportunity to turn toward awareness, to release identification, to open the heart. In this way, life itself becomes the practice, a continuous movement of learning, growing, and awakening. This path is accessible to everyone. It does not require special abilities or beliefs. It simply requires the willingness to look deeply, to question assumptions, and to rest in the presence of awareness. In doing so, one discovers a freedom that is not dependent on circumstances, a peace that is not shaken by the winds of thought and emotion. This is the heart of the Buddha's teaching, the liberation that comes from seeing clearly, from knowing the nature of mind and the boundless space in which it arises. As this understanding is embodied more fully, there is a shift in how one relates to the world. Life is no longer seen as something to conquer or control, but as a sacred unfolding. Each person, each moment, is recognized as an expression of the same awareness. This recognition brings a deep sense of belonging, of being at home in the universe. The boundaries between self and other dissolve. What remains is love, vast, unconditional, and free. Through this journey of observing thoughts and awakening to awareness, one touches the timeless truth that the Buddha pointed to. Beyond the changing play of mind and world, there is a stillness, a presence that is always here. It is who we truly are, beyond all concepts and identities. To live from this truth is to live with wisdom, compassion, and joy, to be a light in the world, shining from the depths of awareness itself. As we reach the closing reflection of this exploration, it becomes natural to wonder, how do we sustain this insight into the nature of thought and awareness throughout the unfolding flow of life? In the beginning, there is often a sense of separation, moments of clarity during meditation or peaceful solitude, followed by periods of being lost in thought, swept away by habits and old conditioning. But through gentle, steady practice, the gap between these moments of clarity and everyday experience begins to narrow. The realization that thoughts arise and pass within awareness becomes less of an intellectual understanding and more of a lived truth. Something embodied in every gesture, word, and breath. This process begins with a deep and honest intention. Without force or striving, there is a sincere willingness to know the mind, to see clearly the patterns that keep us entangled and suffering. This intention itself is transformative. like setting a compass in the right direction. It shapes the course of our journey. Every time we choose to notice a thought instead of reacting to it, to breathe instead of resist an emotion, to listen deeply instead of rushing to judgment, we reinforce this intention. Little by little, awareness becomes more stable, more natural, woven into the fabric of life. Equally important is the cultivation of patience and compassion for ourselves. The habit of identification with thought is ancient, deeply rooted through countless moments of conditioning. It is unrealistic to expect that these patterns will dissolve overnight. There will be moments when we forget, when the old reactive self takes over, when we fall into worry, anger, or grasping. But each of these moments, too, can become a part of the path. Instead of criticizing ourselves for forgetting, we can simply recognize, the mind has been caught again. In that simple recognition, the chain of identification is already loosening. With kindness and perseverance, we return again and again to awareness. One of the most beautiful gifts of this practice is the growing sense of freedom it brings. Freedom does not mean escaping the realities of life or avoiding discomfort. Rather, it is the freedom to meet whatever arises without being enslaved by it. Thoughts can arise, stories, opinions, judgments, but they are seen as passing clouds. Emotions can surge, sadness, joy, irritation, but they, too, move through the open sky of awareness. Even the sense of self, with all its roles and identities, is seen as a dynamic process, not as something fixed or absolute. In this spaciousness, life becomes lighter, more fluid, more authentic. This freedom also transforms our relationships with others. When we are no longer so tightly bound by our own thoughts and self-concepts, we can truly meet others as they are, without the filter of projection or expectation. We begin to listen more deeply, not just to words but to the being behind the words. We recognize that others, too, are caught in their patterns of thought and conditioning, often struggling silently. This recognition softens the heart. Instead of reacting with defensiveness or judgment, we respond with understanding and compassion, even in situations of conflict or difficulty. This spacious awareness is invaluable. When we notice the arising of defensive thoughts or anger, we can pause, breathe, and choose not to be carried away. This does not mean suppressing emotions or pretending everything is fine. It means acknowledging what arises with honesty and care, while remaining rooted in awareness. In this way, our actions become more skillful, less reactive. We contribute to peace rather than furthering division. Over time, this quality of presence begins to permeate all aspects of life. Ordinary activities, washing dishes, walking down the street, drinking a cup of tea, become opportunities to rest in awareness. The mind may generate thoughts, but there is no need to follow them. One simply returns to the immediacy of experience, the warmth of the water, the sensation of footsteps, the taste of the tea. Life becomes richer, more vivid, when lived in this way. Even the simplest moments shimmer with the light of presence. Of course, challenges will still arise. Life in this human realm is inherently uncertain and often difficult. Loss, illness, disappointment, these are part of the human experience. The practice does not shield us from these realities, but it transforms how we meet them. Rather than being crushed by adversity or lost in despair, we learn to meet each moment with an open heart and a steady mind. We see that even the most painful experiences are transient, that they, too, arise and pass in the vast space of awareness. There is a profound resilience in this understanding, a deep well of inner strength. As the sense of self becomes less rigid, another quality begins to emerge, a natural gratitude. We realize that so much of life's beauty has been missed when we were caught in thought. The sky, the sound of the wind, the smile of a friend, all these are appreciated more deeply. Gratitude arises not as a forced attitude but as a spontaneous recognition of the wonder of being alive. Even amidst impermanence and uncertainty, there is a quiet joy in simply being here. In this moment, this gratitude naturally gives rise to generosity. As the heart opens, there is a wish to share this freedom with others, not through grand gestures necessarily, but through simple acts of kindness and care. A gentle word, a moment of deep listening, a helping hand. These are expressions of the awakened heart. They ripple outward in ways we may never fully know. In this way, the personal practice of awareness contributes to the healing of the wider world. Throughout this journey, it is important to remember that the path is not linear. There will be times of clarity and times of confusion, moments of insight and moments of struggle. This is entirely natural. The key is to stay gently committed, to return again and again to awareness. No matter what is happening, even when it feels like progress has stalled, trust that the seeds of insight are being nourished. Over time, they will bear fruit in ways both subtle and profound. Support from wise teachings and spiritual community can greatly aid this process. The words of the Buddha and other awakened teachers serve as guideposts, reminding us of what is possible. Conversations with fellow practitioners offer encouragement and perspective. Being part of a community dedicated to awakening helps sustain our own practice, especially during difficult times. Together, we create a field of shared intention that uplifts and inspires. Ultimately, this path of observing thoughts and resting in awareness leads us to a deep and direct knowing of who we truly are. Beyond the passing parade of thoughts and emotions, beyond the stories of self, there is a timeless presence. Always here, always now. It is not something to be attained, because it is never absent. It is the very ground of our being, the silent witness in which all experience unfolds. To recognize this is the heart of the Buddha's teaching. And yet, even this recognition is not the end. It is the beginning of living from that knowing. Moment by moment, each day becomes an opportunity to embody awareness, to meet life with compassion and wisdom. There is no final achievement, no place to arrive. The journey itself is the flowering of awakening. With each breath, with each step, with each interaction, we have the chance to express the depth of our insight, to live as an expression of the boundless awareness that we are. May this understanding continue to deepen for each of us. May we walk this path with courage and kindness. May we support one another in the great adventure of awakening. And may the fruits of our practice bring benefit to all beings. In this moment and beyond,